disagree, or at least there's different people trying different things. And again, when you don't have a body of knowledge, if you don't have anything established in the first place, I think there's a lot of value of different people trying different things and then getting together and comparing notes and saying, hey, what's working for you, or what's been your results, and that type of stuff. So yeah, there are other people working the general area of green water, but I try and go into different areas where I'm a little bit away from people, again, just for the purpose of if I'm going to leave out some figurines, or if I'm going to leave out a glyph, or if I'm going to do something like that, or if I come into my campsite and a glyph has been left for me, to the best I can, not having been there to witness anything, I can rule out other humans.
Right. So describe to me what it's like when you go out. So now I'm assuming that you do some of these things by yourself, or do you always try to bring somebody with you?
No, I do it by myself.
Okay.
When I first started doing it a couple of years ago, are you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Me?
Yep.
Yeah. So when I first started doing it a couple of years ago, it was really spooky because I mostly go out at night. A real typical night up here in the Northwest, and in the summertime, the days are really long. So, I can put my son to bed at 8 o'clock, and there's people watching him, and then I can head up there and spend a night up in the woods, and then come home, in time to get him off to school.
Right.
And so it's, it's about 45 minutes to an hour away. So, instead of watching Game of Thrones, for several hours and binge watching or whatnot, I just head up to the woods. It is spooky. I mean, I am out there by myself. I generally don't use a tent. In fact, I haven't used a tent in years. I've gotten to the point where I don't like tents.
Right.
I will use a pop-up shelter, if it looks like it may rain or something like that. And I generally go deep enough to where I can set up a little base camp to where I don't have to hike in gear every night. So I can just go into camp. Yeah, the first couple of years, it's scary. I mean, you're out there by yourself. I do usually start a fire. I'll quite often use charcoal instead of wood to keep the flames down. You get a little more warmth, a little more longevity. But as far as critters and stuff like that might come mess with you, having a fire, I think, is a good security measure. But you want to be able to see too, and that's the problem with a fire is it messes with your night vision, so you can't really see beyond 10 feet outside of camp if you run a fire. I used to have little candles. I used to play myself music. I used to do all sorts of stuff just to kind of calm my nerves. And, after a couple of years, it just becomes kind of like sitting out in your backyard. I mean, you're just used to the area.
Right. And you from that standpoint, so basically you're out there in a bivy sack, and or a little bivy shelter, and you're by yourself. That's you're a brave guy. That's all. That's all I can say. I don't think a lot of people would do that.
Well, it's amazing what you can get used to. I mean, because people tell me that all the time. We're very fortunate in the Northwest that we don't really have a lot of serious predators. I mean, we don't have grizzlies. We have brown bears, but if you have a fire, a bear's not going to come by. Cougar attacks. I did a lot of research over a couple of years. It's like, what are the dangers, but yeah, you do think to yourself, it's okay, what if a 7-8 foot tall Sasquatch walked into camp, or made him appear himself? Fortunately, they don't seem to do that.
Yeah.
They have a tendency to, you'll have chance encounter. And this actually goes into a subject that we've talked about before, is, when you're trying to get anywhere with a Sasquatch, there seems to be different types of encounters. One is just a chance encounter. You're just out there on the road. It happened up in Greenwater about a week and a half ago. About 10 o'clock in the morning, first turn around the bend, a Sasquatch walked across the road. And I can guarantee you that the 4 cars that saw it never dreamed in their lifetime that they would see a Sasquatch. They probably weren't trying to.
Right.
But it happened. You can't recreate that. a scientific or anyway, it's a chance encounter by definition. So
Right.
how can you plan or construct a chance encounter? You can't. So in reading in the early days when I first got into it, and some of the books like Tom Powell's The Locals, and as you went through the 90s and all their sighting reports and stuff that people would post, you kind of realize that the other side of it is what people call habituation, which is going out there continually, either getting them comfortable with you or whatnot, from building up a rapport with them on some level, and then when they do that, generally the reports seem to be that the first time that they show themselves, it'll be at a distance to kind of like gauge, like, okay, how are you going to react? You know what I mean?
Right.
There's not very many encounters where, a Sasquatch walked into your camp, sat down, said, "Hey, what's up?" Or attacked you or something like that. They seem to usually gauge your reaction at a distance, and that's something good for people to keep in mind is if you are walking down a forest road or a hike and something shows itself at a distance, that they just might be gauging what your reaction is going to be.
Right. So do you think that now, whenever I know that in Greenwater, there's the general store there, and you can actually go in and write your name down and say that, that you've had an encounter or you've seen Sasquatch and the thing. And, if you read through some of those different things, along that road in between Enumclaw and Greenwater, it seems like there's quite a lot of sightings. I mean, I'm not saying there's one every week, but it seems to be one of those things where, maybe once every 4 or 5 months, there seems to be something on the road.
It's definitely a hot spot. Where I live, I'm at the base of the Cedar River watershed. That's a kind of a restricted area. When you get up into there's a lot of, what you think of classic signs, prints, broken branches, trail markers, all sorts of stuff that you can see up there. The problem is it's very inaccessible from a habituation. You can go on a day hike if you want to go on a 5 to 10 mile day hike continually, but what I'm trying to do with building up a rapport, kind of have to find a place where you can go continually. And that I found was a real challenge. You kind of have to, a lot of the major campsites, the forest roads and all this type of stuff are so occupied that that's another reason why I have a tendency to go into the woods a little bit, is just, again, to find a place I can continually go over and over again. Most campsites that are the established campsites are quite often occupied if you just happen to go up on a random day, particularly on the weekends. It's possible because there's a lot of people that go up there for recreational purposes. There's a lot of people in those places that live up there in the summertime as well. There's a good share of homeless population and veterans that go up there to get away from people that just basically live on those campsites as well. So finding a place to habituate can kind of be a challenging at times.
Well, yeah, and it is one of those things where I think that's one of the things that Samara and I have had issues with, in the Mountain Loop Highway up here is that there's a large homeless community that does live, next to the, within, I would say maybe a half a mile of that road, even though there's really nothing around that. It's all national forest and people aren't supposed to be out there, but you do have to be careful that you're not in a situation where, if you're out looking for Bigfoot or researching Bigfoot, that you're not coming in contact with, a person, that just doesn't want you to be there. I mean, you can find in some situations, out in the middle of nowhere, just sort of these shacks, and,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't really speak for, I know where you're at. In the Greenwater area, it's not really quite like that. It's almost like a community, and they have a tendency to know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's mostly the established camps, all over those roads. If you go up there 3 or 4 times and it's the same family that's there, then you know that they're staying there. I go in pretty deep, and I haven't found a lot of other than my own. I'm the one that they're probably thinking lives deep in the forest that's living out there, but I don't see that as much up in that area. They're pre-established homeless shelters. I got to know a few of them that were living out there because some of them aren't out there for economic reasons. Being a soldier, I've ran into a number of other soldiers that were out there for PTSD and just getting away reasons that it was a mental health issue. And I've gotten to know them and talked to them, and I was really surprised. And they were the ones that actually told me that, no, actually a lot of these people are just living up here.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's interesting. So what we're doing is we're talking with Patrick Eqistemon of the Bigfoot Portal. And, in the second hour, what I'd like to do is go a little bit farther into Patrick's research methods, as well as talking about some of the different experiences that maybe you've had. I'm going to open the phone lines up in the next hour after 9. And the number again is 1-833 262 8788. That's 1-833-262-8788. And, we could listen to some of your stories as far as the types of things that you're talking about. Now, really quickly, Patrick, do you think that there seems to be a big difference in regional locations as far as the types of first encounters that people have?
Well, I'm not sure about regional. I mean, the longer I study this, and this is just my personal opinion, the longer I study this, the more I'm convinced that we're not talking about the same. There's not one bipedal forest creature out there. There's enough of the difference, especially when you go worldwide, when you talk about the Yeti versus the Alma versus the Northwest Sasquatch versus the skunk ape. And then if you get in some of the more fringe things, when you look at the giants, the red-headed giants on the East Coast, and there's a fascinating category of thing, or I'm sorry, a study of its own of just the American archaeology and some of the hidden stuff that's out there. So I again, until somebody definitively can categorize this stuff, the more and more I think you look at it, the more and more you realize there's more out there than just one type.
Yeah, I think you're right. It just seems to me that it from your standpoint and mine as well, we have a tendency to think of Bigfoot in the sort of classic Patterson-Gimlin type experience, Harry and the Henderson type Bigfoot, and a lot of us have experienced a Bigfoot that seems to be sort of benevolent in some ways and not scary at all, and yet you can deal with people in Louisiana, and like in the swamp, and it just seems like they're talking about a completely different type of thing. One has a standard 5-toe splay, and the other one has 3 toes, and so it's a very, very interesting thing that I think we're talking about multiple different types of beings that are kind of put together into the Bigfoot soup. And, it'll be interesting to go ahead and take your calls and ask Patrick's opinions about that in the second hour. But, again, Patrick, can you quickly just go ahead and give us your website address?
Yeah, it's just the Bigfoot Portal, one word, .com. That's the website itself that has the new feed. It also has the calendar on it, and then there's a Facebook page, again, the Bigfoot Portal, that we push out in order.
Okay, well, it's so again, he's got his page, the Bigfoot Portal, on Facebook. I think during the break here, what we're going to try to do is just make a switch over here and call him a little bit on a cell phone or something, because it just seems to be very broken up for some reason. And so it's 9 o'clock and time for the break, and we'll see you back on the other end.
Okay.
Oh, there you are. You're back.
Yeah, you come and go.